to some extent, I just want to make a quick excerpt of an idea that just came to mind. Like sometimes you think too much. It's both the beauty of a philosopher, inquisitiveness, scientific, inquisitive, and so on and so forth. To some extent, sometimes the blessings, your blessings, are also your curses, so to speak. Sometimes, so to speak, right? What I'm gonna emphasize though is that just hearing what I heard from yesteryear, because literally I'm the youngest in my family, my predominant tree, right, so to speak. And to some extent, it's so ironic that I've heard stories that, like, back in the day, what was it called, Woodstock or something? And there was like this joke I heard. Obviously I'm 27 myself predominantly, but there was people at Woodstock, they had this joke. I guess that's like baby boomers, right? Was that them? Were they really like crazy or wild? But I guess every age has their own wildness, right, so to speak. But what I want to suggest, though, provocatively, is this whole ordeal that about Woodstock, they say if you were at Woodstock, or no, if you remember Woodstock, you weren't there. And I thought that was like the most ironic, funny thing in the whole entirety of the world, right? Because I can only imagine, right? But obviously, you got to be careful out here. And just like the water supplies are getting more tainted, maybe that's the beauty in places in America, like where things are still very, very okay, moderately, besides Detroit, you know what I mean? And if you go to places like Vermont, like even 10 years ago, you could go to just wells where it springs out of the water or out of the ground just through pipes, and you could just drink the water, and it was actually, pretty pure, not Fiji water, but actually better than tap water, so to speak, right? So to speak. So that's the beauty of the East Coast, because they have higher standards as far as standardization, as far as implementing greater social and environmental care, right? So to speak. But the point I want to make for this veritable moment is this whole ordeal that, just like those people in like baby boomers, I guess a lot of people, there's different types of people, right? So to speak. But there are wild times, no matter what. It's like everybody's trying to find themselves to certain extents. And I was just comparing that of the baby boomer generation to that of this millennial generation, even the younger generations, because there wasn't so much technology once upon a time, right? And it's just like, how people like were pronounced to be hippies sometimes, so to speak, long hair. And this was a conservative nation on a lot of facets. Still in a lot of facets, it still is. Like long hair was like shunned upon. Like sometimes, who was it? The Beatles? They were like, oh, tisk, because they had boys with long hair, and that's for girls, right? Who knows, right? There's lots of conservation. That's what I've heard. I wasn't there though, right? Like I can only testify to what I've heard via script and stories, right, so to speak. But as I think about millennial ages to some regard, it's like, holy crap! Like, what are the millennials are facing more just as many qualms, if not way more, or at least different types of qualms and obstacles than any other generation, right? It's so crazy. Like to see how this. I was just reading an article just a moment ago. The qualms are totally different, right? Because what is it? Trump was bragging and boasting, braggartly about, interest rates being basically zero, or not interest rates. Interest rates are low right though, right? For what it's worth, quantitative easing, this whole process over this past trajected 15 years, right? That's all we've seen, you know what I'm saying? So we haven't known anything else. It's kind of been an artificial marketplace to some contextuals, but beyond the scope of this or that, I gotta get off here because I told them I was gonna be fast. But 1 second I'm gonna say is that it's irony in all this. You know what I'm saying? Because millennials are facing different qualms than other people, and society's got to figure itself out. And it's not all bad. It's not all good. Just like any other period throughout time, right? So I'm gonna get back to you when I get a chance. I plan to get on this podcast, get my studio set up to some extent, and obviously sometimes I feel like Scooby-Doo. Is it Scooby-Doo in the Shagmobile? And Austin Powers got my mojo back. So stay on your toes.